Ascension News. Another world of work is possible. Yes, another world of work is possible, and that may sound a crazy notion if you feel trapped in some meaningless, boring, or stressful job that seems to suck the very life force out of you. Work is a major source of suffering for most of the beings living on this planet, and this does not have to be the case. Work can be a vehicle for something radically different, but more about that shortly. When you consider how much time you spend in work over a lifetime, then you really should think about the quality of that time and effort. Yes, it may seem a scary thought to leave the safety and security of some boring or stressful job to step out into the unknown, but for a moment consider the consequences of staying. Feeling stuck in some meaningless job that feels joyless or hard can take its toll emotionally, physically, mentally, and even spiritually. Such work will create stress, which will feel like an ongoing tension in the body, as well as generating emotional and mental tension. Stress over time can often lead to ill health and serious illness. Long-term stress will lower our vital force energy, our vibration, and this in turn will impact everything, what is possible for us to allow, accept, attract, and create in our reality. These days, most boring and stressful jobs have the facade of safety and security, but really they are anything but. In this volatile time on the earth plane, what once seemed secure is no longer so. My first career was in international banking, where I worked for 10 years, and this was a career that was considered pretty safe and secure. These days, most of the jobs that were considered safe and secure are no longer so. It may seem strange, but the work I'm doing now, however weird it may appear to some, is more secure than most of the financial jobs you will find in the City of London or any financial centre. How times do change. I know about suffering and stress at work from personal experience. My 10 years working in finance at the beginning of my working life generated a deep sense of meaninglessness, entrapment, hopelessness, and depression. I couldn't see any point in the work I was doing. I had no real affinity with it. And worst of all, I deeply questioned the ethics of some of the things I was working on. During that time, I explored different activities to find some healing and relief, such as macrobiotics, yoga, tai chi, hypnotherapy. But I eventually discovered the source of my suffering was nothing to do with my lifestyle and everything to do with my work. I eventually took a year off work and entered a long phase of psychotherapy. In time, I moved to a new job in an inner city borough working with special needs and elderly tenants. I'd moved from a structured, conservative, right-wing environment, you could say, to a socialist, idealistic, left-wing, rather oddly aggressive and chaotic environment. On a more positive note, around this time emerged a burning passion for spiritual wisdom. I began attending spiritual and personal development workshops, which helped me transform almost every aspect of my life over time. The one area that remained out of sync with my heart and spirit was how I was earning money in the world. So working this job, I was promoted to a middle management position, earning more money, but I was feeling the winds of change, and I'd been there for 10 years. My heart was telling me now was the time to leave, but my head was saying, stay. Since I was becoming more spiritually aware, I decided to ask the universe a question. Should I resign from this job? I waited, and within 48 hours, I received the answer. During a lunch break, as I was walking back to work one day, there was a person walking several feet ahead of me. He was wearing a t-shirt, and on the back of this t-shirt was a Nike slogan saying, "Just do it." This message hit me like a thunderbolt, but quite quickly my mind cut across, very quickly discounting the message. I was reminded by a stream of thoughts that I had responsibilities, that I should not throw everything away because of some random slogan on a t-shirt. As I continued walking, my attention was drawn to a nearby window, and there was a sticker with the same message of "Just do it." Okay, that was it. I gave in, I surrendered. Shortly afterwards, I handed in my letter of resignation. I can still remember the bliss of that day and how grey everyone else in the workplace seemed. Thus began my next adventure with work. I'd let go of the safe career, and now I threw myself into every job that became available that I could find. I painted houses. I worked with a landscape gardener, sold books, also sold health products. During this time, I started working part-time for an amazing organisation called Alternative, spiritual organisation based at St James's Church in the West End of London. This organisation promoted spiritual author talks and workshops. After a year or so working in the office, they offered me the job of full-time administrator. I wasn't really keen on administration, but I loved the organisation, so I accepted. In my free time, I continued doing personal development seminars and spiritual workshops, and yes, I'd become a spiritual workshop junkie, of course. After a year or so of admin work, I was offered a directorship of Alternatives. Within a short period of time, the other two co-directors resigned, and I found myself running the organisation alone. Not really having any business experience, I meditated and prayed. Fortunately, the universe was listening, and I was guided to employ the perfect people for the right jobs, and also guided to make some important decisions to restore the organisation to a place of high morale and financial stability and abundance. I stayed a director of Alternatives for 13 years. In this position, I helped organise around 2,000 spiritual author events. I learned here how to be creative and entrepreneurial, how to play, how to make inspiration a daily practice, how to turn one good idea into a successful income stream. I learned about the power of generosity, what goes around comes around, and about the importance of community and finding the right soul tribe. In my work at Alternatives, I felt my soul was calling me to move on again around 2009, but I had found my spiritual home and family, so I resisted the calling. This led to a dissolving of many aspects of my life and to a dark night of the soul that began in 2010. I eventually left Alternatives at the winter solstice of 2012. I went on to do various jobs, including business consulting and social media work. I even drove a London bus for a year. In 2016, I began emerging from this dark night of the soul. I left the driving job and began my own healing, coaching and mentoring business, which is called the Soul Matrix. This new work venture has become an incredible learning curve. Over the past several years, I've written a few books, become a successful YouTuber, created a new energetic healing system, and begun running a series of online and face-to-face events. Now, it's my belief and truth that if it's possible for me to transform my work, it's also possible for anyone else, for you. If the thought of finding more joyful and meaningful work excites you, then you are ready for the hero's journey. It's important to remember that the current volatile working climate does not favor conformity. It favors courage and innovation. When I talk about courage, I do not mean to encourage rash or impulsive decisions. Courage is not reactive. It is deeply contemplative. It takes courage to follow your heart rather than just putting up with things that cause you stress and suffering. It is important to remember that if you are unhappy in the work you are doing, you have two choices. You can change your perspective, your outlook to your existing work, to change your experience of it. Or you can decide to leave and find something else. Please remember that liberation from a dull job begins first in the heart and then in the mind. A free heart and mind can envision a life that feels free. A trapped heart and mind is not aware of its true capacities, capabilities, gifts and potentials. If you can envision a better working life, you can feel it, then you can create it. On the other hand, a trapped heart and mind is blocked by limiting ideas, beliefs and feelings, old stories, perceptions, expectations. We cannot truly know ourselves or see the world through such emotional mental distortions. When we transform our limiting ideas, beliefs and stories, we will in time feel, see and experience a whole new world of work. When it comes to allowing, finding or creating joyful, meaningful work, the word vocation comes to mind. And this word comes from a Latin verb meaning to heed a calling. In times gone by, a vocation was used to describe someone feeling the call from God to enter some form of religious life, perhaps entering a priesthood. Nowadays, the meaning of the word vocation is so much broader. A vocation is not a job. A job is about performance reviews, promotions, salary increases. A vocation is about following your heart, making a real difference, a real contribution in the world. A job is about a salary, whereas a vocation is about liberating your inner potential, which is limitless because you are limitless. A vocation is about more than money. It's about experience true flow and true abundance. On this journey of moving from a job to work that aligns with your heart and soul, you will encounter resistance. This is normal. The impulse to find or create joyful, meaningful work comes from the soul, whereas resistance comes from the small self, the small ego. Resistance will drive us to play small, chase diversions, engage in drama, conflict, procrastination, where we get in our own way. Focus on what went wrong in the past, what might go wrong in the future. At the basis of all resistance is fear, and fear can take many forms. When we embrace our fear, we can learn to take the journey anyway. Most fear is just an overactive imagination, dredging up all of the worst case scenarios that will never probably happen. When I decided to follow my heart, my biggest fear was becoming homeless. At that time, I even went to a beautiful heath in London and found a spot that I would sleep if the worst ever happened. It never did. This journey will expand what you believe is possible. It will help you bring more awareness and light to the small ego selves, which in turn will help you activate more of your inner resources and abilities. You are more gifted than you realize. The important thing to realize is that taking the journey is the way to liberate your gifts, your inner potential. The soul is multidimensional, and so are your gifts. When I was working in finance, if anyone had told me I was destined to be the director of a spiritual organization, that I would become a spiritual coach and mentor, that I would create a new healing system, that I would run workshops around the world, that I would become known on YouTube, I would have asked them, what is YouTube? No, seriously, I would have thought they were crazy. At that time, I felt all that I knew was paper shuffling in some big office. To really undertake this journey, you need to embrace all of yourself, and that includes the left brain logical, linear, and strategic parts of yourself, as well as the right brain visionary, imaginative, creative, and intuitive aspects. You need both the yin and the yang for this journey. It's only when you embrace all aspects of your being that you can access a new level of genius and flow in your work. I have a saying that many of you may have heard me in my online events. Your weirdness is your brilliance. You're not here to follow the herd. You're not here to be formulaic. You are here to follow the impulses of your heart, your soul. The journey of following your heart is about being flexible and adaptable. Consider shedding what you do not need. Downsize where possible. Travel light. There is a saying, nature abhors a vacuum. When you truly let go of what is no longer needed, then you can create the space for this truly useful and meaningful to enter your working life and your reality. The journey of finding work in alignment with your core values is a journey of diving deep into the psyche, into the soul. Flow, bliss, grace, and divine providence are all spiritual experiences that you can have. Miracles can and do happen in this world. Your work can become a vehicle for your bright spirit. If you are feeling the call of your soul to make some important changes in your work, if you feel in a crossroads, if you feel ready to take the journey to find or create more meaningful and joyful work, then check out my latest book, Joy at Work, published by Watkins Media, April 2023. This book outlines some of the ideas I've shared here and many more. Much love.